On a cold, or should I say dreich, February night, Scotland on TV ventured forth to a suitably named public house in darkest Edinburgh to bear witness to the unveiling of a curious hybrid graphic novel.
The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Sadly, Robert Louis Stevenson wasn't in attendance, but very much alive, author Alan Grant, artist Cam Kennedy, colourist Jamie Grant, and old Scotch storyteller James P. Spence were. This is an account of what transpired on that fateful evening.
They did a book promotion last year on Kidnapped, and they decided then to do a Scots version, Kidnap It, and I suspect it really captured people's imaginations. It certainly captured my imagination. I just thought that's absolutely brilliant. Not just a graphic novel, but a graphic novel in Scots. That's tremendous.
It's coming home about 3 o'clock on a black winter morning. My way Hyde gaed through an air to toon where there was nothing to see but lanterns.
That it seemed foolish not to take the chance to repeat that with Jekyll and Hyde.
And there's also been quite a lot of versions done of it. But we decided to do it, we're glad to do it because the Scottish team and Scottish writer, and I think we've probably produced, all three of us, one of the best versions, yeah.
It was actually harder to do than it was to do Kidnap, because Kidnap boils down to being an adventure story and a friendship between two guys. Whereas the way that Stevenson wrote Jekyll and Hyde, it was as a mystery, not as a horror story, which most people would think. It was actually a mystery, and the denouement of the mystery doesn't happen until the last chapter. And I tried to stay as true as I could to Stevenson's original, so I wasn't able to muck around with the running order of things. So it remained as a mystery, which is the way he would have wanted it and the way that he would have liked it.
I was so involved with it and I was so passionate about it, whether it was difficult or not was kind of irrelevant, and I really wanted to get it right. I wanted to stay faithful to the story. I wanted it to be as rich Scots as possible. So although it's primarily a dialect from Jedburgh or Jethert, as the locals would call it, I wanted it to appeal to the whole of Scotland, but also to make it understandable to people.
And it was different than doing, say, some of the science fiction stuff I've done, or Judge Dredd, or other things. But no, in fact, it was really enjoyable, sort of just mildly researching the kind of clothes they wore at the time. But I kind of knew that anyway, because we've all seen so many things over the years in TV and films, and like Sherlock Holmes kind of era and various other things that have been on. So you've got an idea in your mind of the silhouette of how people were dressed at that time.
Cam's detail is more raw, it's more fresh, it's not totally technical, it's just beautiful. It's like the beauty is in the flaws, you know. It's different, it's colouring on chunky background with big shapes, big shadows. Great.
It's not that simple, Gav.
No? I suppose you want to be Jekyll.
We're both Jekyll.
Come again?
And we're both Hyde, according to the script.
It's probably quite unusual for a graphic novel, because it is very, it is a psychological story which you wouldn't kind of perceive in a graphic novel. So I think that's been a great challenge for everybody in concern.
He seized on something there which many authors and filmmakers who came after had I've seen, the dichotomy in the human condition, the evil that lurks perhaps inside every man. Somebody was saying earlier on that they could see the beginnings of Batman in that, and personally it's the Incredible Hulk for me. Every time I saw the Hulk when I was younger, I used to think of Jekyll and Hyde. It was so obvious that that's where the Hulk came from. I believe there have been something like 120 different movie versions.
Somebody said to me at one point, just as I was starting, they said, well, it'd be really nice to see drawings of Victorian buildings, but that is not Jekyll and Hyde for me. Jekyll and Hyde for me is this character, this characters, which, funnily enough, they were like the base for most comic book heroes.
A lot of us probably learnt to read with our grannies or our mums buying comics when they come back with the shopping in the afternoon and you get back from school. There'd always be a comic and there was a whole variety.
We were probably all brought up on DC Thompson comics, and I know that's where I got my love of comics from. My grandmother taught me to read before I went to school, and she used the Beano and the Dandy as the books to teach me from, so I started with the best.
And that's also why we're here tonight. The whole thing is to get kids to read. So again, the Jekyll and Hyde, as was Kidnapped last year, it's exciting and it makes them want to go and find the original book, and then maybe they'll find all the deeper parts. It's like buying the remix album with all the extra stuff.
To use both hemispheres of their brain when they read a comic. They have to use the left side to understand the words, and they have to use the right side of their brain to understand the images, and their brain has to put these two together.
If that gets them reading, if that gets them in love with the idea of reading dusty, dry words without pictures, it'll be good in their life to be able to be coherent.
The kids particularly seem to like the one in the Scots tongue, because I guess it's close to the way they actually speak at school.
Mr. Utterson had a coarse physog that was never skinkled by a smile. Though he was gay dour wi' his sell, he would thole and respect others, and when it came to the bit, would rather lend folk a hand than heckle. I side wi' Cain's heresy, he used to say in a kind of stoury fashion. I let my brother gan to the devil in his ain way. His friends were frae his ain kith and kin, or them that had kent him the langest sign. Hence the clique that yoked him to his yonder cousin, Mr. Richard Enfield, the weel kent chiel about toon. It happened that on yen o' their Sunday danders, doon a wee wind in a Bringin air to London,